First live panel of the day as we kick off this Bitcoin halving live stream. We have a good bit of time for this first panel, and it's a topic that's interesting to everyone watching because it has a lot to do with Bitcoin's growth and, of course, number go up. So we have really the perfect set of panelists to weigh in on the topic of mass adoption of Bitcoin post-halving. And I guess to start off, let's have everyone just give a one-sentence introduction of yourself and company, and then we'll get right into the discussion. Toby, if you want to go first.
Hey, John, and hey, everybody. My name is Toby. I'm CEO and co-founder here at TenX. And with the topic you just kicked it off with, the mass adoption is exactly where TenX is at home. We're trying to help people get in and out, and we're best known for TenX card to basically make Bitcoin spendable.
Thanks. Dominik?
Yeah. Hi, and thank you for inviting me. I'm here with SatoshiLabs mostly, even though I'm an academic economist and I'm usually a teacher at the university. But I also am an economic advisor to SatoshiLabs. You all know for having Trezor, the first hardware wallet. So yeah, mass adoption is what we do every day.
Perfect. Bach?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bach. I'm here. I'm responsible for partnerships and integrations at NVIDIA, which is a new subsidiary of SatoshiLabs and SatoshiLabs Group. And Dominik basically just explains what SatoshiLabs does, and our main product is Trezor. But NVIDIA is a new onboarding site, and we are actually looking into onboarding the next 100 million users. So hopefully that's going to work out.
Great. Flex?
Hey, everyone. Thanks, John. Thanks, Bitcoin Magazine. And I'm Flex from Bitcoin, not from Bitcoin, from Babel Finance. Babel Finance is actually a centralized financial services platform for Bitcoin and majorly Bitcoin. And yes, what we're trying to do is actually bring kind of financial products to Bitcoin holders, and we also tries to bring the traditional financial guys into this industry to make this industry a better one.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks.
Molly?
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly. I'm the head of marketing and PR for HashKey Hub. HashKey Hub is one-stop digital asset management platform developed by HashKey Group. It's also the first consumer-facing product developed by HashKey Group. Before HashKey, I was strategic partnership manager for Wang Blockchain Lab and China operation for Bitcoin Magazine.
Homegrown. And Lixin.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me. And hello, everyone. I'm Lixin, head of hardware from Cobo. And what my team is working on is Cobo Vault, and we have just released our second generation product. And for mentioning mass adoption, we're working on the most fundamental part for mass adoption, which is security. And we believe we're building the most secure hardware wallet currently in the world. And it has open source SE, and also it is QR code air gapped for better isolation for your private keys. Yeah.
Awesome. And our moderator, Sally.
Hello, everyone. I'm today's host, Sally, consultant at Blocksbridge Consulting, a peer firm in providing peer strategy and advisory for international business in crypto space. We specialize in crypto mining. Thanks, John. Please
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so great collection of talent here. I guess to set the stage, kind of give us a sense of what the environment is for Bitcoin adoption now that you're seeing, and kind of your specific region, your specific kind of target customer demographic. Just set the stage for us. Maybe start with Toby and kind of go down through whoever has a comment. You're on mute, Toby.
Thanks. So thanks, John, for the question. So for TenX is now 5 years old, and we went through the last like 2017 bubble, and I'm really excited. Like I would say, probably could say FOMO, for the next wave of adoption, because we really built this company to cater to the mass market. And what we're seeing now is that during the last wave, and those people that are here today, I would say probably in the audience, we call them crypto masters. They have been here. They're really technically savvy. And I think what the next wave is all about is like you're an early mainstream audience. So we call them crypto curious. They have heard about it in 2017 or maybe in the last few years, but for some reason they didn't come into our industry. And our industry, and just as much as TenX as well, is really catering to the problems that they're facing on why they haven't come into that. Like this goes from user experience, where people don't quite trust themselves yet in how to handle Bitcoin, handle the security. They really trust finance on themselves and not delegating it to someone else like a bank. And I think this is really the next big group, and it's about 20-30% of the population. This is like millennials and younger, digital first. They know how to use digital products, and we're seeing them come in. We, as TenX, we made the switch about 1 year ago, really focus on this new audience, while supporting, of course, our core customers that have been with us over the years with our core products, but really being able to fulfill our vision of being that bridge from the crypto world and connecting it with the real world. With our, like right now, the focus is still the card, but also then increasingly buying crypto, and in the future, possibly other products to cater to the needs of those new users.
Okay, thanks for the input, Toby. So maybe specifically, can Dominik indicate how he views the macroeconomy environment in this context?
Yeah, thank you for the question. You know, I would look at it with like two different point of views. One is historically, we saw something in 2012. This is like the first time I ever bought a beer with Bitcoin. And if you compare that time to today,
hating yourself.
we spent a lot of money back then. But if you look at that, we wouldn't even be able to foresee what's happening today. What we are doing right now, that would be unimaginable. So we are way further than we all thought. So historically, the mass adoption, I think the growth was higher than we expected back then. And there were some milestones, so we all know them. You can even look at the past halvings. So we didn't have hardware wallet before the first one. We didn't have things we all like to use before the second one, etc. So something will happen even macroeconomically. Second thing, economically, strictly economically, if you look at the consumption basket of goods people buy with Bitcoin, this is something where we need to change it, or just wait for it to change. But if you look at it, you see that most people in the real world spend most money for things like housing, energy, food, and we don't see it in the Bitcoin economy yet. So the consumption basket is really different. Much of it is for electronics and charity. So these things should converge. We don't see it there yet, according to some statistics. So this is something where I would like to see the mass adoption. People buying houses or food for Bitcoin are still like just a couple of them in the whole world. So they are curiosities.
Okay, thanks, Dominik. So move on to the next one. So I know a lot of you have been evolving in rolling out new technologies previously. So starting with Lixin Liu from Cobo. So can you share some insights into your approach and how you are bringing that experience into Bitcoin?
Okay, thanks, Sally, for asking this. Again, I'm from Cobo, and we're making hardware wallets. And actually, when we were designing the product, we had like 3 design principles, which are the ultimate principles that we obey for designing the product. Again, thanks to Trezor, and Trezor is currently #1 hardware wallet in the market, and we also learned a lot from Trezor. Yeah,
so friendly. All right.
Yeah. We should stand together again, Trezor. We should stand together to educate the market rather than just fight each other, right? This is what I want to pitch to Dominik. Yeah, And also when we were designing the product, we had 3 design principles. The first is maximizing the attack cost. This is super important because the ultimate goal of using a hardware wallet is isolating your private key. So how your hardware wallet is connected to the companion app or is connected to the blockchain, that's really important. And that's the first thing we want to do, which is maximizing the cost of attack. And then we come to the solution of QR code air-gapped. I know for the main players in the market are not using QR code air-gapped. Mostly are using USB ports and Bluetooth, which are very huge attack surfaces. But they are not unsafe. They're just bigger attack surface. So we just shrink that attack surface with QR code interaction. And also we implemented some very mature tactics from traditional banking equipment, such as self-destruct mechanism, which means if a hacker stole your device and he want to forcibly open the device, and the device can self-destruct all the private keys and other sensitive information in the device. So the first thing is maximizing the cost of attack. The second thing is we want to minimizing the trust of the product. I know that people have talking about the secure element thing for a long time. Trezor is the supporter for general purpose MCU and open source everything. And the Ledger is the main supporter for secure element. But the controversy part is secure element mostly works as a black box. So what we were doing is we open source the firmware of the secure element, which makes people can see how the secure element works and to verify the code there. And also later, we will allow people to upload their own firmware into the secure element to make their own hardware wallet. So the second thing we do is minimizing the trust. And also like Ledger is a good teacher to us. We will also open source the hardware design and open source as much as possible we can do for the community to verify the product. Yeah, I think the third thing we did, the third design principle was we put user experience into consideration very much. Because if we check all the history about crypto loss, we can see that a lot of crypto loss happens not because of the design of the hardware or some flaws of the hardware, but because of the people's human error. So we took that into consideration. And the biggest thing we did is we implemented a big touchscreen into the hardware wallet. So you can just use it as your mobile phone as the hardware wallet. That's a big advantage to lower the possibility for human error. And also currently we're integrating the product into Electron. And when we were doing that, we found that the big screen really helps a lot because, for example, if you set up a transaction from Electron and send it to your Cobo bot, and then with the big touch screen, you can see that from the Cobo bot, you can see that the Cobo bot can tell you which address of the output address is your change address. And this significantly eliminates some attack surface, like hacker can change your exchange address. So this kind of thing can really help for user experience to avoid human error than to bring a better security situation for the community. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Mainly 3 things: maximizing attack cost, and minimizing the trust, and also take user experience into consideration to lower the possibility of human error. Yeah.
Thanks, Lixin, for sharing. Maybe Molly wants to add a bit on that. Hello, Molly, can you hear me?
Or anybody else? Bach?
Yeah, thank you for the word. I would like to say thanks for the friendly, words at the beginning, Lixin. I think that cryptocurrency hardware wallets like ours should actually cooperate, and we have the same intention, right? We want to onboard as many customers as possible into a secure wallet. When it comes to philosophical differences, I don't think we have to talk about it here since we're more focusing on the mass adoption than discussing hardware wallets right now.
So maybe now Molly wants to add a bit on that. Oh.
Yeah, let's take it to the next one. So that's kind of thoughts on kind of past experience as it relates to onboarding new users into Bitcoin. Those new users, kind of that next 100 million, next billion, next 7 billion people. As we look to those kind of future Bitcoiners, let's kind of hear your thoughts on who those people are, how you're thinking about onboarding them specifically. Maybe Flex, if you can start with that. You have a kind of a unique customer base in that it's both retail and institutional. Maybe Flex, if you could take a first stab, and then we'll hear others.
Okay. Can you guys hear me, actually?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we got you. We can hear you, Flex.
Hello.
All right. Hey, so next 100 million users. Let's go back up to the top, and Toby, if you want to take a first stab at it.
Sure. So I mentioned before that we're focused on this like next 20-30%. That's probably 100 to 500 million users globally, rough calculation. And I think what's interesting for me is like on one side, the users, they're like early and mainstream, mobile first in many countries, digital savvy. But also I'm interested in like what everybody thinks, what the narrative's gonna be, and which parts of our industry gonna be adopted first, and then as a priority. Like one for me that is really clear is like the concept of Bitcoin as an asset class. That's really quite common in the existing users, and I think that's definitely one. One that I'm really interested in is like how far you can push usability further. Like I call Bitcoin as like programmable money, because what you can build stuff with yourself, like DIY finance, like things that we see with even simple products like our card. It's a Bitcoin card, you can spend Bitcoin, but people build their own solutions, such as where we saw early users send money across borders to their kids so they can spend it, which is kind of like your own DIY remittance product. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think I see it evolve on an individual basis. You might not be able to pinpoint, okay, this is the one thing that everybody is doing, because precisely when you look at traditional finance, you have a problem. If it affects millions or tens of millions of users, then, well, banks are quite okay in solving problems for huge parts of the population. But when you're the only one, then nobody cares about you. But with Bitcoin or other solutions in our industry, you can do it yourself. And I think that's an interesting one. So going back to the big topics, I think you can roughly break it down into markets. So you have the developed world, which is like on the financial side, quite set up in terms of, let's say, payments, peer-to-peer, and others, where it's really about inflation hedge as an investment, preserving capital, and I'm curious what else other use cases we're going to see. I mean, it's then once you have your money in Bitcoin, how do you use it? Of course, you have to solve that, and how do you create loan market, credit markets? There's going to be a lot of that. And then you can look at the emerging markets where financial problems are different in nature. Where yes, they also have problems with inflation and trying to hedge, but sometimes they don't have access to other things. Like that's why we see, let's say, Bitcoin-based remittance businesses gain traction in those markets. But I can also see like just peer-to-peer payments and other products take traction like differently by market.
Cool. Thanks, Toby. Any other follow-on thoughts? Maybe Flex, we have you back.
Okay. Yes, because we we're
losing Flex here. Hey, let's here. I do have a kind of a question on this specifically, maybe for kind of a specific angle, in that as kind of we onboard new users into Bitcoin, is there any thoughts on kind of ideologically kind of ideological priorities, education, what kind of first principles should we be thinking about? Maybe Dominik, if you want to take a first stab at that one. Interested in SatoshiLabs thoughts.
Yeah, I remember back in 2015, I guess there was a first demographic study. I remember having a lecture about it, and so I even have some numbers. I wasn't prepared for the question. I even remember that there was a pie chart where you saw different groups, different ideological backgrounds of people who came into Bitcoin, and I remember that there were the anarcho-capitalists on one side, there were the anarcho-communists, there were green. I think that we lost them on the way, unfortunately. It was interesting if you ask them what were the reasons behind them adopting Bitcoin. It was awesome that everyone loved it for something totally different. The libertarians liked it because it was against the central banking. So obviously the left anarchists loved it because it was against the system, whatever it means. Then the Greens loved it because it was against the banks. So that was totally different. And at the end of the day, we all used it together. I think that we lost the Greens, and there is something we should focus more on within the adoption, because I think that we failed to explain the energetical problem of Bitcoin. And if it really is Bitcoin, and halving is the best place to do it, because we can show to the world that that it's not profitable that much for the miners to spend that much energy and spend that much on energy after the halving, if the price is not going up. So here we can explain some principles and explain that how it will look like in the future with energy. So we lost these, but other than that, it was still, the groups were ideologically extreme, even though I think that some of them are right, but still extreme. So here we can go to the mainstream. It's not only, as what Toby said, not only the developed versus developing countries, emerging markets, which we also saw. We have coinmap.org. Just look at the map, and you will see that it's north versus south. It's Europe, except France. I don't know what the hell happened there, but we are all over Europe and United States. But that's it, basically. So we have to move geographically, but also ideologically. It has to be something which is normal for people to use. We are not there yet, which is optimistic because we have a place to move, and also pessimistic because we don't know how to do it clearly after 10 years.
And it's interesting, kind of thinking about maps of where it's growing. Curious to take it to Molly. And thoughts on the next 100 million for y'all. I think y'all have kind of focused a little bit on expanding in Southeast Asia, Vietnam. Molly, how are you thinking about that? And is there are there any kind of principles y'all are thinking about expanding via? Molly? All right, sorry guys. Lixin, how about you? Pick it up.
Yeah, actually, because I make hardware wallets, so what I focus on is the hardware wallets and the security part. Previously, we were thinking that most of our customers are in the States and are in the China, in these most developed countries for Bitcoin concept and other stuff. But recently, it's very interesting that we received a lot of queries or interests from emerging countries like Vietnam and even like countries like Cameroon, these kind of countries. And some companies, they are very interested in help us to do localization for our product in those countries. So also I want to add something to Dominik's answer about the ideological priorities. I think because hardware wallets is I think compared to other companies here, hardware wallets has the most deep learning curve for people to adopt the product. So I think education first is very, very important. Not only, I think the job of the education should not be done only by media like Bitcoin Magazine and also like podcasts like Stephen Rivera. But we companies, we also need to get involved into those to tell people what are the things like and what are the how to use those kind of things to get your financial sovereignty. And apart from education, I totally agree with Dominik that user experience plays a huge role here, because we still cannot say that Bitcoin is easy to use, it's easy to gain this financial sovereignty. So we really need to help people to, and also part of this is the problem of localization, because Bitcoin is something about, because if you wanted to promote Bitcoin to emerging countries, you need to get trust from them. That's really, really important. And if you're talking a different language and they can only understand 10% of you or only 50% of you, that's really bad for mass adoption. So I think every one of us, every company here should work with local companies. And I'm glad seeing that more and more companies are coming together, are coming to us to help us localization, do the localization part and do the local education part for the emerging countries. I think that's a big positive thing I can see currently for the next 100 million users in Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, Bach.
Yeah, thank you. If I can add to what Dominik and Lixin have said, I definitely agree that the education is very important in onboarding users, more so if it's a hardware wallet. At the beginning, like, during 2016, 15, 16, 17, we saw those cryptocurrency like experts or the people that actually knew how Bitcoin works getting in. And over the years, we've seen a more like like Toby said, the crypto curious coming in. And we had to adapt to that. We had to focus more on user experience, on putting elements that guide everybody in the user interface. We're actually working now on a new companion application to the Trezor, which is, the user experience comes first there. It's not, we had to, or we wanted to get rid of the last version so we can start on a green field. I was talking about a new project that I was working on, and that's NVTIO. And we decided to start something new because when a user comes into the Bitcoin cryptocurrency or into this environment, they have to go, or they need to go to something first instead of, they're not going to buy a hardware wallet immediately because there is a upfront cost. So with NVTIO, we are trying to be the buddy, be the guide through the cryptocurrency world, and through education, explain everything so that the user understands.
All right. Education, focus on making it easy for new users. All makes sense. Molly, if you want to take one more crack at this, that next 100 million for y'all, how you're thinking about it demographically, geographically, product-wise?
Okay.
All right. Anybody else have a comment on that specifically? Toby? All right. All right. Well,
maybe if I can, I have just one thing in my head. When I'm talking about, because I'm still I'm not mainstream. I was educated in the Austrian economics, but I have a PhD from mainstream economics, and I'm at a lot of conferences when we talk about money and monetary world and all the things that are happening right now, quantitative easing and things like that, and people do not, even people who are at the top in the banks and central banks, some of them are not understanding money. They don't know how money is created and what all the things we are now experiencing happen and work. And the point is that still people at least think that money is easy to understand, even though it's not. And Bitcoin is, for generation of my mother, she's 59, so she's not old. But you have
dating yourself, your mother, dating everybody here.
But you have a QR code there. For her, it's some super duper science, a QR code. So
that may be a different experience for 59-year-olds in China, though. Yeah, back to the geographic. Anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
my mom can easily use QR codes. And yeah, and she pays the vegetables she bought with QR codes.
Yeah, just a sign of how geographically this is. Yeah,
it's quite interesting here.
Yeah,
so let you finish your thought there, Dominik.
No, my point was that maybe it's like she is not educationable at the moment. She didn't even want to learn it.
Right.
So maybe even before the education a little bit, there has to be just the user interface, that just to be the UX. And still, it is true. We say it all the time, but it's true. Bitcoin was created by IT guys for IT guys. And now maybe, and there are projects here in Prague and around the world. I saw plenty of them who try to onboard artists or people who know how to talk to the general population without trying to educate them as we economists or IT and tech-savvy guys do it. So maybe we should experiment in that a little, and I saw it here and there with great success. So I'm very open to like, as I said, artists explaining Bitcoin. Why not?
Okay, artists explaining Bitcoin.
Can I have a quick question for Dominik?
Sure.
Yeah, Dominik, how would you explain Bitcoin to your mom? I'm curious about this because I'm planning to ask my mom to buy some Bitcoin.
Yeah,
and for posterity, this is Mother's Day, by the way, too. So anyone watching in the future. So.
I really try to. I even wrote a book, and it was really good selling here in Czech Republic, and I specifically dedicated it to my mother. She read it and still do not understand it, so maybe I'm doing it wrong, and it's really hard, and I failed in the task, so it's really hard to explain. Because for the best part, Bitcoin is Plan B. It's a huge monetary phenomenon. It's something we are hedging against the system, and here there you have to explain a lot of small particle things. So if you really want to say just okay, you can send digital money from person A to person B, she would understand it. But why? Why should I use it? That's the tricky part. And there you have some use cases. I have colleagues and students from countries where it's really usable, useful, cheaper, faster, whatever, more secure. But here in Prague, we're kind of okay. We will fight deflation probably here now. So we will try to fight that money will be more valuable every year. So it's hard to explain why then we should use something like Bitcoin and explain the big thing about behind it. So that's the task I'm failing at.
Yeah, I also found it's extremely hard to describe why for people in China, because in their mind that a bank cannot be bankrupted. That's the thing in your mind.
China, banks owned by country.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really hard to explain to them.
But I think Stroukal just mentioned something that not just happened to like normal people, but also happened to the institutional players in around the world. Because currently, as long as we have seen the signal that even Fed will go to negative on the interest rate, so they have plenty of money on hand, but the money has nowhere to go. But Bitcoin is a good story with the concept of stock of money and against the depreciation of the currency, and that would be quite helpful for the institutional users to actually join this market by pumping in US dollar from our perspective, because we are doing the banking business and we provide Bitcoin as collateral to the institutional players. They accept it. They don't, because like it's not like 2 years ago that they will ask you this or that, but currently there are more and more funds, institutional funds like a Renaissance, like a Tudor fund, they coming. So for the Asia Pacific institutions with lots of money on hand, they think this market is a good one because there's lots of high yield opportunity and they can get enhanced yield compared to the traditional financial world's yield. It's quite attractive for them. So I think it's good signal. And for other things like traditional financial or traditional high net worth individuals. They have lots of properties in like equity, in treasury, in like normal banks financial products. They are thinking to move portion of the assets into this new crypto area, because I think there's a reason that currently there are lots of things happening like between U.S., China, between West and East, and if they have read a history book, they know something is going to happen, and when there's something happening, those assets or those properties that you need to have the authority from government to show that you own it, it will be valueless. So they are thinking to move something to like crypto currencies, especially Bitcoin. But from their point of view, that maybe they just allocate like 1 to 5% of the assets to this area, but it's not small because they are like traditional high net worth individuals. So they put only a little bit money into this market, will be a huge one for this market currently. So yeah, they are thinking most they just lost like 1 to 5% of the assets, but maybe it will become half of the assets allocation in the future, like 2 years later when Bitcoin's price reach like 100K, which we most of us really expected, and then yeah, they will enjoy the ride, right? So yeah, why not? Why not? Yeah. So it's from financial perspective.
So I think Flex suggestion is not telling people that Bitcoin is taking over the whole thing, but you should allocate some money in Bitcoin to as a hedge.
I think it's not possible to tell people that Bitcoin is taking over everything, because overall why people invest in Bitcoin, like most of them, is because they think the price is going to go up, and they think it might can deflect, like hedging from the risk than fiat. So if we want a more user to adopt Bitcoin, I think the best way is just make everything easier for them. I think hardware is a little bit like too technical for them as well. And then the overall environment in Asia for Bitcoin is actually pretty interesting. Like for China, as instance, the Bitcoin is a legal virtual asset, but it's illegal to trade Bitcoins. So, and also the mainstream media, they actually pay quite a lot of attention on Bitcoin. So when the Bitcoin price pump, they're going to report in a very attractive way. So I think by nature, when people saw the news like this, they are going to be interested to buy Bitcoin. But because there's most of like relatively legit exchange, they are not. I think they just pretend they're not in China. So for a lot of them, it's pretty complicated for the retail user to find those relatively legit exchange. So some scammer, they're gonna take advantage of that. So you can see a lot of news, and also scammers are willing to pay more money, spend more money to promote the platform, so they are able to reach more people than the people in the crypto, the exchange in the crypto. So you can see a lot of news reports in China that a lot of scammer and Ponzi scam then using Bitcoin to scam people's money and run away from it.
I think that if I can join, I think that Molly said an interesting thing there, that most of people buy Bitcoin because they expect the value to go up. So when I was thinking about these questions, my main questions was like, so what kind of mass adoptions do we actually want? Do we want a mass adoption where the crypto carriers are coming in because of the expected promise of the value increase? Or do we actually want a mass adoption of the people that can be then more knowledgeable, that can educate themselves and realize the actual value of Bitcoin, and it being a non-governmental, a self-sufficient, self-independent currency that they can use? I would actually be very curious about other people's opinions on here.
Yeah, I think
not questions about massive adoption of Bitcoin. That's more like a massive adoption of the intelligence of a human can. So
yeah, I think that's a very great question. From my perspective, I think mass adoption should happen not only chasing for price up and down, but chasing for financial sovereignty. And that's what I'm telling also my team what our work value, where our work's value is.
Yeah, I want to add something here, and I think is like we're all aware that we need to get our products and services easier to use. The thing we shouldn't forget is if we take, let's say, the next 4 years as a time frame, is what is the world doing in this time frame? And I think this financial sovereignty that you just mentioned, or the ideologies or macroeconomic environment that we have is like it's changing everything really fast. People have been used to that our financial markets work they do for forever, that our pensions are secure, that banks are always solvent. But I think we're going into an environment now, and it started only a few months ago, of very high volatility. And this is, I think, where it becomes important, or increasingly important, to really help people understand why this world exists and why it's actually important, because we've built up our financial system by removing risk here and there and bailing out banks, and now we're bailing out all kinds of other organizations. And the point is, we're trying to make it secure for people. We're trying to make it safe, but the result is that we're just hiding volatility. We're hiding these events that people haven't seen in a lifetime. And we will increasingly see different types of these events. I mean, unemployment in the US is one of them, where people are just not prepared. And I think it is already leading on many technologies in like massive speed up of adoption. Just take video conferencing, all the tooling we use, like it's accelerating. VR, all these technologies are going faster. And I think, I mean, one of them is of course digital money, well, because my cash in my wallet is useless when I'm sitting at home. And then you go next steps, right? From digital money to maybe central bank money to your own sovereign owned money. And I think this is going to be the frame, or the landscape that we're going to be navigating. And I think you guys are completely right that we need to educate and help people understand that on one side they can avoid scammers, on the other side that they actually can leverage this the way they want, because you don't want to risk too much. You want to really use it the way you intend. And that is a lot about education.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I also want to add a bit on that. So I think we're still in the early stage of Bitcoin, and most of people in the industry are speculated, let's be honest, and then maybe small number of investors are institutions. So to go there, actually, I remember Pop on Crypto Trader said that, if Warren Buffett has the money, he could buy the whole Bitcoin in the industry, right? So imagine if that happens. And that's scary, really, that's scary. One person has the wealth that can buy the whole Bitcoin in the industry. So what do you think? Because, it seems that we're still far away from getting to the mainstream. So a lot of people be saying that, like, we're still like Bitcoin is still like a non-mainstream thing. So what's your take? I'm really curious to know what's your take on this.
Hey, and not to rain on the parade. This is let's keep the answers to 1 minute, because we have only a couple minutes left of time.
Sure thing.
It's like, I think I just want to add one thing. It's like when British people just go to North America, or European people go to North America. It's kind of wild, and you need to build everything, and after that, you can get more people there. So as early adopters, we just build lots of infrastructures for the newcomers, and I think after it's just an issue of time being. After 2 or 3 years, everything will be ready, maybe. And as long as the technology has been advanced, and we see more smart cars, smart devices, and macro payments may be a reality, right? So yeah, lots of adoption will be there, but currently it's still early stage. We're early adopters, so yeah, I think speculative is okay, because when the first batch of European goes to North America, they go there just for speculation. I think I just want to earn money, right? For interest. They're not just going to build like ideal country that will build the most strongest country in the world, USA. They have no that vision when they just step on the North America, but we are building something together, and finally we'll find the vision. We'll finally provide a service to the massive.
For sure.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I love that picture you just made about going to America in like pre-industrialization, where it's really about the assets per se. So having land and like putting it down or finding maybe even gold. It's like a very how do you say, low tier, like a very basic economy, right? And I think the interesting question that we should also ask is like, what are the next things we need? So yes, speculation comes with the fact that it's really about money and assets and investment and speculation right now. But we don't want to be just agriculture, comparing it to the US, right? We want industrialization. We want a real, true digital economy powered by hard money. And then you need everything else on top, right? You need trustless contracts. You need to find a way to work together. You need to find a way to maybe even build crypto businesses that don't rely on like our outdated systems that are actually already quite difficult. You start a startup with 5 people in 5 countries, and then you try to follow 5 different kind of tax regimes. That's hard. So how do we evolve all of that to support the growth and like all the products that we see in the future? I think that's going to be a bit longer than the next 4 years, but I think we're all, as early adopters, excited by that. And then it goes all the way back to the beginning where you said, yeah, it's speculation because we want to build this future. We want to see this future, but in the end, we don't know how to do it yet. So we're just working day by day, getting one step closer at a time.
Day by day. I think that's a good thought to end on. Working day by day. Appreciate all of you joining. We're gonna have to end it here, but keep the discussion going on Twitter, or and you can find everyone tagged in the tweet for this panel. So stay in touch. Thanks y'all for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Good luck with that sleeping baby, Dominik.